Okay, and welcome back. Talking with Joel Skousen about the world at large. Joel, what about Europe? I mean, this is really a catastrophe. What's happening? First, the EU was forced on them, and they actually rolled over much more quickly and easily than I thought they would. Brussels dictating to them, telling them what to do. The UK, kind of the odd man out, but Cameron. I mean, how do you survive sex with a dead pig? And that just tells you more about where the world has gone. I mean, it's amazing. If this had happened 30 years ago, do you think that the guy could have survived that? People just do these incredible things, and they just ignore them. And they carry on as if nothing happened. And the Teflon public just lets it go. Slides right on by.
Well, part of this is because of the disconnect between public discontent and the reins of power. I mean, the powers that be, one of the reasons why they want to give us a controlled Republican is because there is just growing this tremendous backlash against having Obamacare foisted upon us, having a Supreme Court Justice, John Roberts, supposedly a conservative, take the phone call in the night, conjure up an excuse to vote for Obamacare, and feel totally disenfranchised, and then to have a Republican Congress run by John Boehner, and Mitch McConnell sabotage any attempts to either defund Planned Parenthood or stop Obamacare or continue to fund the government. I mean, people are just up in arms, and so they are in Europe. I mean, look at the rise of the UK IP Party, the Independent Party of Britain, the National Front in France. Both of those parties won most of the seats to the Parliament. I mean, they have the anti-EU people don't have a majority yet in the EU Parliament, but they were winning more seats in the last election and continue to be strong.
Good point, yeah.
Nigel Farage, when he speaks in the European Parliament, man, cheers go up. He tells it like it is. It's a real Donnybrook, and that's why I say the words of Helmut Kohl, a real globalist, in 1997, when they were arguing the Maastricht Treaty, and he said, look, if you don't get it together, there's going to be war in Europe. And everybody looked at each other and said, what does he mean? There's no sentiment for war in Europe. And what he meant was, as a globalist, we're going to give you a war if you don't go along with this. And so ultimately, you see, what we see is this backlash against globalism, backlash against the TPP, and the backlash against the TPIP, this new EU United States.
They're all so confusing. They didn't do that. Didn't happen accidentally either.
That's right. But what I'm saying is I've always predicted, even though we seem to be boiling the frog slowly and accepting these things, having them foisted upon us, the rebellion is growing. And eventually, when you get the full impact of these laws, taking down your sovereignty, people will say to Congress, get us out of there. And that's why they know that only war will cement this in place in an irreversible fashion. And that's why all of this conflict creation around the world is meant to give us another third world war eventually.
The Republicans, I forget the Democrats here. I don't want to talk about them. Trump, still leading in all the polls, said he's not going anywhere. He's going to win. Are they going to install Donald Trump?
They are not. In fact, Donald Trump wouldn't even be good for anybody in the White House. You simply cannot have someone who will not be careful as President of the United States. And he will not read a script. He will not memorize his lines. He will not do a homework. He's going to speak off the cuff or not at all. You just can't run a country like the United States speaking off the cuff. You'll make too many mistakes. So, but I'm going to do a second piece this next Friday in the World Affairs Brief on the mechanism of how they plan to use the primary system to dump Donald Trump. And they, it's, I think we've talked about it one time before in your show, but the way they've changed the rules in the primary, they can put somebody in there who doesn't have a majority of support. Now, they have to bring down Donald Trump, but...
well, let's talk about that in just a minute, Joel. It's very important. Back in just a minute. If you'd like a free complimentary copy of World Affairs Brief, just ask. Write to Joel at editor@worldaffairsbrief.com, and he will send you one. editor@worldaffairsbrief.com. Okay, back with Joel. If they start playing primary games, are they going to have to do it in every state? Or just key states?
And they're going to do it in all the states.
This is going to be very visible if they do it.
No, because it's so complex, it's not going to be visible.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, it's very, very complex. For example, the first 5 or 6 primaries have proportional representation, and the rest after March 15th have winner take all. And a lot of these states have 3 delegates that are in at large, so to speak, that aren't bound by the proportional delegations, and they're going to be controlled Republicans who can give their votes to Bush or any other establishment candidate. The GOP tells them to do it. And so with the various rule changes, even though Trump starts to come ahead in proportional, Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio get more than what they would normally get with these new rule changes. Then Florida comes along.
Jeb is still in the running?
Well, he's down at the 5% level.
Which is almost invisible.
Yeah, I mean...
Getting down there.
Rand Paul, Chris Christie, and my cup of beer, 6%. So he's really down there. But remember, they resurrected John McCain from a 2% level.
He was in his coffin, gone.
Yeah, 2% up to 30% with 6 Democratic newspaper recommendations or
That's right.
In any case, Marco Rubio's twice the level, but they expect to be able to get Jeb Bush to win an entire winner-take-all in primary, which will give them a boost. Then they have, and one of the reasons they put so many Republican candidates in there is, one, to water down the support among so many that it splits all the true conservatives. Donald Trump has messed that whole thing up, but you got to remember they still put in John Kasich of Ohio, who has he could possibly win the Ohio primary and then give all those votes to Jeb Bush, because by the new rule changes, unless you win 8 states, you can't even be nominated in the Republican convention, which forces them to give before the convention their votes to another candidate. So I suspect that when you look at, let me get the list before me. There's a group of what we call the insider candidates and the outsiders. The outsiders are Donald Trump and Ben Carson, Ted Cruz, and Rand Paul. And
no one else has dropped out lately. Only 2 have, right?
That's right. And so basically what we're looking at is Carla Fiorini. Some people claim she's an outsider, but I don't think she is.
Say that again.
Some people claim that Carly Fiorina is an outsider, but I think she's an insider.
I would concur with that.
She's
had too many doors open for her.
That's right, and she was picked to be on an NSA CIA review committee, and you don't pick anybody but controlled entities.
When was this?
This was about 3 years ago when she was picked for that.
Really? Now, that's very telling.
It is.
She's been being groomed for a long time for this, then.
That's right. Marco Rubio is, up and coming, but he basically turned into a neocon by being invited to speak at Brookings and Carnegie Endowment for Peace and all of these globalist organizations. And he's got a very, unfortunately, even Ted Cruz, who's normally very, very conservative on a wide range of events, has turned into a raving neocon in terms of foreign policy, because he thinks that's what the Republicans expect of them, and he's a compromiser in that regard. Fortunately, Rand Paul is less, he's less interventionist and reluctant to take that on, but no one's willing to call a spade a spade, and even Donald Trump, and say that ISIS is the U.S. creation and the phony war on terror is just there to take away our liberties and to create conflict. Trump, in fact, is very, very bad on Syria, even though he says let the Russians duke it out there. He claims that Assad has to go and that he was responsible for using chemical weapons. He's bought into all that propaganda, and it's a lie. But so I was very disappointed on Trump's position on foreign policy.
Who's advising him? Where's okay?
I don't know who his advisors are. He acts as if he doesn't have any, but I know he
he's
does.
pulled that off very well. But he's got to have some top people.
Sure. I mean, he didn't write that tax proposal, and he didn't write his immigration proposal, and his immigration proposal is pretty good. But if I could find out who his, I'm going to have to do some research. If I can find out who his advisors are, I could tell you whether or not and how much influence the globalists have on his advisory capacity.
That would be something that would turn out to be, I think, one of the most important things you could come up with. Find out who his team is.
Right.
Who's there? I have not heard any names mentioned at all. Whoever they are, they're very smart, and they're able to feed him in such a way that he can regurgitate the data and make it sound like he's just creating it on the fly.
That's right. And, Ben Carson is really almost a one-man show.
I don't particularly care for some of his positions, but But
he is a sincere conservative, and I'm surprised. The only reason I think that the media has given him as much press is to try to take down Trump. They know they can take down Carson. He doesn't have any financial backing significant, so he can't really run a good campaign.
He really is a one-man act, you're right.
He's a one-man act, and he is fairly principled, but he doesn't have a good handle on the vaccine issue.
He's being used.
He's being used to bring down Trump, and then they'd bring him down, and hopefully, they can get Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio.
I just can't. Boy, that's going to be another John McCain if they.
This is very difficult. I don't think, as I've said in my World Affairs Brief, there are 4 major setbacks the globalists have had in the period of 2 months. And one of them is Donald Trump. One of them is the immigration backlash from all this
scams
in Europe and in the United States.
That's not going to go away. It's only going to intensify.
The Russian intervention in Syria has just been the major setback. I mean, this has the globalists reeling. They just
I agree.
Meeting day and night to see,
I'm wondering if they might allow Trump to go in there because of his popularity. It would be a way to steer the public that they haven't had before. Now, Trump can always be approached and told what time of day it is and given the word. All right, nobody wants to die young or too young, and I don't know. I think he's controllable from their perspective, and he has done something really unique. He has excited a lot of people in this country, as you well know, and we've talked about this before. I don't know that he's going to go away quietly or easily.
Well, I think that they could. I agree with you. I think he is controllable by virtue of his sloppy background, from liberal to conservative in the past. I mean, he obviously isn't an ideological person. But nevertheless, I just don't think remember, they're trying to undo the backlash against Obamacare and everything, and I don't think that Trump's capable as the person, his personality, of gaining respect of the world and of keeping conservative respect as well. Speaking off the cuff.
I honestly, Joel, I just don't have much of a problem with the guy. The way he speaks doesn't bother me.
But it's cocky, and it's
yeah.
There's no humility in the man.
No, nor is there in Hillary Clinton.
No, that's true. You don't.
Nor is there in Michelle Obama.
You expect it of a conservative.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, look at Michelle Obama. There's another machine.
Yeah.
Good God. And the word is they're going to move to Asheville, North Carolina, and she's going to run for the Senate seat.
Already bought a huge piece of property there.
Did they buy?
And he's going to run her for senator, I think.
And they're going to hire you to design okay.
I don't work for those people.
So, that's the first confirmation that an escrow has closed on a piece of property. So they've got the Hawaii place. Now they are in Asheville, and Senator Richard Burr, I think is the guy's name, which I don't know too much about him, but he's retiring.
That's right. A perfect place to open up Michelle Obama.
So Michelle or Michael or whatever it is, it'll be a cakewalk for her to win. And then what does she do? Appoint Barack to be UN Secretary General or what?
Well, like Bill Clinton, they're not through with Barack Obama yet in terms of, but although, Bill Clinton's really a much more affable public representative of things than Barack Obama will. I think he may well want to go quietly.
Well, Obama likes to play. He likes his sports, and he's got his boyfriends and all that, and he's kind of like Clinton in that regard.
Yes, he is. He is. Just doesn't have the likability, though, that Bill does.
No, again, too much. Bill's got the down-home, good old boy.
Right.
You got Obama's sneering, snide, just too cutesy, too contrived, too arrogant, too conceited. I mean, talk about narcissism. Come on, there it is. Okay.
Well, I think it's important to remember that Donald Trump continues actually now to increase his lead. Marco Rubio and Carly Fiorina are in a collapsing trend.
They're fading. So, yeah,
they're fading.
I think that my feeling is that they may use Trump to control the popularity and emotional impact he's had on too many Americans to ignore. They could use him to create a false unity in this country in a way.
They could, and they could shatter it then by a grand disappointing
That's
position.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. So I don't know. I wouldn't count him out yet, but strange things happen. Right. Joel, thank you. It's always just great hearing your views on things, and we'll talk soon.
All right. My pleasure, Jeff.
Thank you. Good night. Okay. Editor at worldaffairsbrief.com if you'd like a complimentary edition of Joel's newsletter. There you go. Okay, that's Tuesday already. We'll be back tomorrow night. We shall see what happens. Take care.
Like it is. It's a real Donnybrook, and that's why I say the words of Helmut Kohl, a real globalist, in 1997, when they were arguing the Maastricht Treaty, and he said, look, if you don't get it together, there's going to be war in Europe. And everybody looked at each other and said, what does he mean? There's no sentiment for war in Europe. And what he meant was, as a globalist, we're going to give you a war if you don't go along with this. And so ultimately, you see, what we see is this backlash against globalism, backlash against the TPP, and the backlash against the TPIP, this new EU.
Slides right on by.
Well, part of this is because of the disconnect between public discontent and the reins of power. I mean, the powers that be, one of the reasons why they want to give us a controlled Republican is because there is just growing this tremendous backlash against having Obamacare foisted upon us, having a Supreme Court Justice, John Roberts, supposedly a conservative, take the phone call in the night, conjure up an excuse to vote for Obamacare, and feel totally disenfranchised, and then to have a Republican Congress run by John Boehner, and Mitch McConnell sabotage any attempts to either defund Planned Parenthood or stop Obamacare or continue to fund the government. I mean, people are just up in arms, and so they are in Europe. I mean, look at the rise of the UK IP party, the Independent Party of Britain, the National Front in France. Both of those parties won most of the seats to the parliament. I mean, they have the anti-EU people don't have a majority yet in the EU parliament, but they were winning more seats in the last election and continue to be strong.
Good point, yeah.
Nigel Farage, when he speaks in the European Parliament, man, cheers go up. He tells...
Okay, and welcome back. Talking with Joel Skousen about the world at large. Joel, what about Europe? I mean, this is really a catastrophe. What's happening? First, the EU was forced on them, and they actually rolled over much more quickly and easily than I thought they would. Brussels dictating to them, telling them what to do. The UK, kind of the odd man out, but Cameron, I mean, how do you survive sex with a dead pig? And that just tells you more about where the world has gone. I mean, it's amazing. If this had happened 30 years ago, do you think that the guy could have survived that? People just do these incredible things, and they just ignore them. And they carry on as if nothing happened. And the Teflon public just lets it go.